Whew. Imagine this, the world outside is dark, the rain tapping relentlessly against your window pane, each drop drumming a slow, hypnotic rhythm that seeps into your bones. The night feels alive, almost sentient, whispering secrets that only the brave or the foolish dare to listen to. Tonight, you are not alone. You can feel it, shadows stretching longer than they should, the wind sighing through the trees, and the faint, almost imperceptible creak of a floorboard in the distance. Something is moving in the darkness, just beyond the edge of your vision. And as the rain falls harder, each story you hear tonight will twist and coil inside your mind, lingering far longer than the storm itself. This is no ordinary night. This is a night where the veil between reality and the unseen thins, where the ordinary becomes terrifyingly extraordinary. You will hear tales told by those who have lived through them, true accounts of fear that clawed at the heart, shivering the spine, and froze the blood in veins that thought themselves safe. People who vanished without a trace, whispers in the dark that nobody dared repeat, and shadows that moved where no light could reach. These are not ghost stories crafted to entertain. These are fragments of life itself, raw and chilling, each soaked in the suffocating atmosphere. Fear. The rain is your companion, your lullaby, your cloak of invisibility. It hides you, yet it exposes every tremor of anxiety in your soul. With every drop, the world outside grows distant, and the darkness inside grows sharper. Your mind begins to wander, imagining shapes in the corners, hearing footsteps that echo in rhythm with the storm. Every story you hear tonight will pull you deeper, as if the rain itself guides you down the winding paths of horror that are all too real. You may tell yourself it's just sound, just imagination, but tonight you will question that. Because when fear is true, it doesn't knock politely, it crawls into your mind, it whispers in your ear, it waits patiently until you are awake, or until sleep claims you. As the rain hammers on your window, each story will unfold slowly, deliberately, like a shadow creeping across a floor, a neighbor who vanished without explanation, leaving behind only a half-open door and a fading scent of smoke. The footsteps you hear on the porch, when nobody else is there. A candle flickering in a house abandoned for decades. Every tale tonight is designed to make the hair on the back of your neck rise, but with a strange hypnotic calm. You will feel your pulse quicken, your breath catch, and yet your body will relax because the rain continues, constant and familiar, lulling you even as the stories grip you. Tonight there are no distractions, no bright lights, no interruptions. The black screen allows your imagination to run wild, to create the shadows that no camera could capture, to feel the unseen moving just beyond the edge of vision. This is your private theater of fear, guided solely by the voices you hear and the storm that surrounds you. No ads will break the spell, no sudden noises will interrupt the rhythm, just you, the rain, and the stories that will haunt your dreams in ways that are deliciously terrifying. You may close your eyes, or keep them open, but either way, your mind is already alert. You are on the threshold between wakefulness and sleep, where nightmares tiptoe and ghosts linger. Each tale is carefully chosen, each voice carefully modulated, so that you feel the story as though it were happening in your very room. You will hear the truth hidden in the shadows, the fear that people tried to bury, the unexplainable events that defy reason. Some stories will make you shiver, others will make you question what is real. And as the rain falls faster, you will find yourself pulled deeper, mesmerized, on the edge of sleep and terror. So listen closely. Let the rain wash over you. Let the darkness embrace you. Open your mind to the impossible, to the eerie, to the stories that are real enough to make you wonder, what waits in the shadows when the world sleeps? Tonight you are not alone, and by the time the storm passes, you may never look at rain the same way again. The rainy night ambience is not just background. It is the foundation of the entire experience, the invisible character that breathes life into the stories you are about to hear. Rain, in its unrelenting rhythmic descent, creates a world apart from ordinary reality, a liminal space between wakefulness and sleep, between safety and fear. The steady patter against windows, rooftops, and the earth itself is both hypnotic and unsettling, coaxing the listener into a trance-like state while simultaneously keeping the senses alert. It is the paradox of rain. It soothes, yet it isolates, it comforts, yet it warns. The sound sets a tone that is almost cinematic, drawing you into a world where shadows are deeper, corners are darker, and every creak or whisper seems amplified. From the very first drops hitting the roof, the mind is primed to experience fear differently. The sound of rain triggers memories and associations. For many, rain at night evokes feelings of solitude, of being inside while the outside world is raw and uncontrollable. That dichotomy, warmth inside, wet unknown outside, heightens the tension for the listener. Each story that follows is framed within this sensory environment. When you hear a tale of someone disappearing in the woods, or a ghostly figure approaching a house, your imagination does not create abstract fear, it creates a tangible, immediate sensation. The mind begins to overlay the rhythm of the rain with imagined footsteps, rustling leaves, or a distant moan. Rain transforms the auditory experience from passive listening into active mental participation, compelling the listener to visualize and feel the scenes as if they were unfolding in their own room, outside their window, or in the darkened street just beyond their perception. Rain also serves a dual purpose. It both masks and accentuates. It can obscure sounds, providing a veil under which the listener imagines the impossible. A snapping branch or a faint footstep hidden beneath the patter of rain becomes magnified in significance, turning a mundane sound into a harbinger of terror. Conversely, the rhythm of rain can accentuate moments of silence within a story, creating tension that feels almost unbearable. When a tale pauses at a critical moment, the only sound is the relentless tapping, heightening the anticipation of what comes next. Every drop becomes a metronome of dread, each second stretching as the listener waits for the next revelation. In this way, rain is not merely an ambient noise, it is an instrument of suspense, a subtle manipulator of emotion that guides the listener's experience on a subconscious level. Another aspect of the rainy ambience is its ability to regulate the listener's state of mind. The sound of rain is naturally calming. Many people use it to fall asleep, meditate, or relax. By combining the inherently soothing properties of rainfall with frightening narratives, the video creates a powerful cognitive tension. On one hand, the brain hears the steady, comforting rhythm, which encourages relaxation and sleepiness. On the other hand, the mind is engaged by stories of fear and mystery, activating alertness and imagination. This duality keeps the listener in a delicate balance between drowsiness and heightened awareness, making the fear feel more vivid and immersive. It is a masterstroke of sensory design. The rain invites sleep while the stories demand attention, pulling the mind into a liminal state where fear is both immediate and lingering. Rain also evokes symbolic and cultural associations that deepen the experience. Throughout history, storms and rain have been linked to cleansing, transformation, and the supernatural. Rain washes away the familiar, leaving behind a world that feels both fresh and alien. In the context of scary stories, this symbolism amplifies the sense of the unknown. When a character in a story ventures out into a rainy night, the listener understands instinctively that danger, mystery, or revelation awaits. The rain becomes a character itself, sometimes a protector, sometimes a warning, sometimes a companion to the lurking horror. It is in this way that rainy night ambience connects the auditory environment to the thematic heart of the stories, enhancing narrative tension and emotional impact. The ambience also shapes the psychological experience of isolation and vulnerability. Rain sounds suggest an environment where you are enclosed, protected in a small space while the world outside is unpredictable, wet, and dark. This reinforces the listener's identification with the protagonists of the stories, heightening empathy and emotional engagement. Each scream, creak, or shadow in the narrative is perceived as more immediate because your mind, guided by the rain, is already operating in a heightened state of sensory anticipation. The combination of the real rain sounds and the imagined story events produces a unique and potent fear, one that lingers in the mind even after the video ends, often spilling over into dreams and subconscious thoughts. Finally, the auditory layering of rain with subtle effects. Distant thunder, wind rustling through trees, dripping water, creates a three-dimensional soundscape. This allows the listener to feel inside the story. They are no longer merely hearing, they are virtually inhabiting the space where the story unfolds. The rain guides attention, amplifies emotion, and anchors the listener in a believable, immersive environment. It transforms a simple tale into a visceral experience, demonstrating why this keynote, the rainy night ambience, is not just an accessory but the foundation of the entire video experience. In essence, the rainy night ambience transforms passive listening into active immersion. It is the invisible hand that controls tension, guides imagination, evokes emotion, and balances fear with relaxation. Without it, the stories might still scare, but with it, they terrify, mesmerize, and lull simultaneously, creating an unforgettable experience that is as much about sensation as it is about narrative. It is the heartbeat of the video, the pulse beneath the shadows, and the subtle whisper that convinces your mind that something is waiting just beyond the edge of perception, hidden in the dark, beneath the rain. True scary stories is the backbone of the video. Unlike fictional horror or scripted scares, the power of these tales comes from their basis in reality. There is an unmistakable weight to stories rooted in real events, the kind of fear that resonates because the mind knows it could have happened, or might still happen. When a listener is told a story is true, the imagination no longer treats it as entertainment. Every creak, every whisper, every shadow becomes possible, tangible, and immediate. It's this authenticity that transforms a simple story into a lingering psychological experience. True, scary stories have a unique ability to bypass rational skepticism. While fictional tales can be dismissed as imagination, tales presented as real compel the mind to suspend disbelief. Every detail, location, date, character description matters. The listener envisions real streets, real houses, and real people, and in doing so they begin to feel the vulnerability that those individuals might have felt. A story of a person vanishing in a forest, a shadowy figure appearing at a window, or a strange sound echoing in an empty house becomes visceral, because it could be part of the listener's own world. This creates a heightened sense of tension that lingers long after the story ends, influencing dreams and even everyday awareness. The use of true stories also taps into universal human fears. While fictional horror can rely on exaggeration or supernatural gimmicks, true stories often expose subtler, deeper anxieties, isolation, helplessness, the unknown, and the unpredictability of human behavior. People are naturally attuned to danger, and when a story aligns with this instinct, it triggers physiological reactions: quickened heartbeat, shallow breathing, a shiver down the spine. This is why true scary stories are more impactful at night, especially when combined with the rainy night ambience. The listener is already in a receptive state, relaxed but alert, ready to imagine. When the brain is told, "This actually happened," it engages survival instincts alongside curiosity, creating an immersive, almost primal experience. Another dimension of true scary stories is their psychological layering. They are not just about fear for the sake of fear, they are about tension, suspense, and unresolved mystery. A story may start with an ordinary setting, a quiet street, a small house, a lone traveler. The normalcy of the opening makes the intrusion of terror more striking. The listener is lulled into a sense of comfort, only to have that comfort shattered by events that defy expectation. Because the stories are presented as true, this shattering feels real. The imagination fills in the blanks, projecting potential horrors into familiar spaces: the bedroom, the hallway, the shadows just outside the window. This interplay of the ordinary and the extraordinary heightens engagement, making the narrative unforgettable. True scary stories also leverage cultural and historical context. When a story references a real town, historical event, or documented phenomenon, it taps into collective knowledge and memory. The listener subconsciously verifies the story against known reality, and even partial confirmation, like recognizing a local place name or recalling a vaguely remembered news event, adds weight to the fear. This subtle reinforcement of authenticity makes the listener more emotionally involved. It also provides a bridge between storytelling and real-life imagination, ensuring the impact lasts beyond the duration of the video. The structure of true scary stories is also crucial. Each tale is carefully crafted to maximize tension while maintaining plausibility. There is a rhythm, a calm introduction, a slow build-up, subtle foreshadowing, and a climactic reveal. The truth element amplifies every beat of this rhythm. A sudden knock in a fictional story may startle. In a true story, it haunts. A faint shadow in a fictional tale might amuse. In a real account, it unsettles. This dynamic interplay between narrative pacing and perceived reality is what makes the keynote of true scary stories so potent. It transforms simple storytelling into an experience that engages memory, imagination, and emotion simultaneously. Moreover, true scary stories create a sense of connection between the listener and the unknown. The knowledge that someone else has faced these events, survived them, or vanished into them creates empathy and curiosity. Listeners wonder, could this happen to me? Could I be in that situation? This projection intensifies the immersive effect. It is no longer a story told to a passive audience. The listener becomes an active participant, mentally placing themselves into the scenario. The stories engage not only fear but imagination, moral reasoning, and even instinctual vigilance, making the experience multi-layered. Finally, the effectiveness of true scary stories in this video is enhanced by the combination of auditory elements. The black screen eliminates visual distractions, focusing the mind entirely on the soundscape and narrative. The rain sets a hypnotic, isolating atmosphere. The narrator's voice, calm, deliberate, slightly hushed, guides the listener through fear without breaking the immersion. And the reality of the stories ensures that the mind cannot simply dismiss the content as fiction. Every creak, whisper, or subtle sound in the story becomes amplified, echoing within the listener's imagination long after the video ends. In conclusion, the keynote of true scary stories is essential because it converts passive listening into an active, immersive, and emotionally intense experience. It leverages authenticity to bypass skepticism, taps into universal human fears, enhances engagement through pacing and context, and strengthens the hypnotic effect of the rainy ambience and black screen. By grounding the stories in reality, the video transforms auditory storytelling into a psychological journey, creating suspense, curiosity, and fear that linger well beyond the listening session. It is the credibility of the tales, the knowledge that they are true, that gives them their unforgettable power, making them far more than just stories. They become experiences, memories, and whispers of the night itself. The black screen for sleep is deceptively simple, yet it is one of the most crucial elements in crafting a truly immersive and psychologically impactful experience. On the surface, it seems like a mere technical choice. Remove visuals, show a black screen, and let the audio do the work. But the black screen is far more than an absence of light. It is a canvas for the mind, a stage for imagination, and a vessel for emotional tension. By eliminating visual distractions, the black screen allows the listener's imagination to take center stage, creating a personalized, hyper-real experience of fear, suspense, and ultimately, relaxation. A black screen functions as a psychological amplifier. When the eyes are not engaged, the mind compensates by intensifying internal visualization. The listener begins to see the story in their mind's eye with astonishing clarity. Every shadow, every figure, every flicker of movement becomes vivid, constructed entirely by the imagination. This is why the black screen is ideal for true scary stories. It doesn't tell the listener what to see, it lets them create it themselves, making the horror uniquely personal and therefore far more intense. A shadowy figure by the window, the creak of a floorboard, the subtle flicker of lantern light. These elements become real because the brain fills in the gaps, merging the narrative with the listener's own fears and memories. In essence, the black screen transforms the listening experience into a private, immersive theater of the mind. The black screen also contributes significantly to sleep facilitation. Modern screens, with their bright lights and visual stimulation, can disrupt circadian rhythms and keep the brain in a heightened state of alertness. By removing these visual cues, the black screen reduces sensory input, allowing the body and mind to gradually transition toward relaxation. The listener can focus solely on the auditory elements, the rain, the voice, the subtle environmental sounds, without distraction. This combination of focused listening and visual absence is ideal for guiding the brain toward a state of calm alertness, where fear is engaging but not overwhelming, and where the listener can drift into sleep naturally as the stories unfold. Another critical function of the black screen is its ability to maintain consistency in mood and atmosphere. Visual elements can sometimes clash with the tone of the narrative. A bright thumbnail, sudden movement, or flashing graphics could break the immersive spell, pulling the listener out of the story and diminishing the emotional impact. With a black screen, there is no interference, only the uninterrupted interplay of sound, imagination, and psychological engagement. Every drop of rain, Every whispered word, every carefully timed pause resonates more deeply because the listener's attention is entirely absorbed in the audio experience. It is a subtle yet powerful method of controlling the environment of fear and relaxation simultaneously. The black screen also enhances the suspense of true, scary stories in a way that visuals rarely can. When the eyes cannot anchor to a specific image, the mind begins to anticipate, to project, and to imagine what might exist in the darkness. Every pause in the narration becomes more potent. Every creak, drip, or rustle in the audio is amplified as the listener subconsciously searches for a source or meaning that they cannot see. The result is a heightened state of tension that is simultaneously calming and unnerving, perfectly aligned with the dual purpose of the video, to engage the imagination and to help the listener fall asleep. The black screen is not emptiness. It is a space of infinite possibility where fear and relaxation coexist in delicate balance. Moreover, the black screen allows for a more universal experience. Listeners from any location, any background, or any personal history can project their own interpretations onto the audio. A creaking floor may suggest a haunted hallway in one person's mind, a collapsing old attic in another's, or a simple branch scraping against a window for someone else. This personalization makes the experience uniquely intense for each listener. Unlike visual horror, which prescribes exactly what the audience should see, the black screen empowers the imagination, allowing the listener's own mind to become the stage where terror, suspense, and curiosity play out. It is a highly efficient and effective tool for immersive storytelling, particularly in the context of bedtime horror. Additionally, the black screen minimizes distractions from notifications, pop-ups, and other digital interruptions. In the modern age, even a single flash or movement on the screen can disrupt focus, ruin suspense, or prevent the mind from transitioning to sleep. By committing fully to a black screen, the video ensures that the listener is fully absorbed, free from interruptions, and able to experience the full intended effect of the stories, the rain, and the combined hypnotic influence of sound and imagination. This uninterrupted focus is critical not only for engagement, but also for helping listeners achieve a seamless mental flow that can carry them into rest. Finally, the black screen works in tandem with the rainy night ambience and true scary stories to create a layered, holistic experience. Rain provides rhythm and mood, the stories supply tension and intrigue, and the black screen offers a canvas for the imagination to fill. Together, these elements create a unique sensory environment, one that stimulates the mind, evokes emotional and physiological responses, and gently guides the listener towards sleep. The black screen is the invisible framework upon which the entire experience is built, turning audio alone into a powerful tool for immersion, relaxation, and engagement. In conclusion, the black screen for sleep is far more than a mere technical choice. It is an essential component of the video's immersive design. It amplifies imagination, enhances suspense, promotes relaxation, and ensures uninterrupted focus. It transforms auditory storytelling into a deeply personal, psychologically rich experience, allowing each listener to inhabit the story in their own mind while drifting toward rest. Without the black screen, the delicate balance between fear and comfort, engagement and relaxation, would be impossible. It is the silent, unseen hero of the video, making every shadow, every whisper, and every drop of rain profoundly impactful and ensuring that the experience lingers long after the viewer has closed their eyes. Fall asleep quickly is central to the purpose and effectiveness of the video. While the video engages the imagination and evokes suspense through true scary stories and rainy night ambience, its design is also intentionally calming, guiding listeners toward a relaxed, sleep-ready state. The paradox of combining fear and relaxation is what makes this keynote so powerful. It turns traditional horror on its head, using psychological principles to create tension and release, ultimately helping the listener drift into sleep faster than ordinary bedtime routines. The process begins with the understanding that human attention and relaxation are deeply influenced by rhythm, tone, and environment. The sound of rainfall, constant and predictable, serves as a natural metronome for the mind. Each drop strikes with a gentle yet steady rhythm, producing a hypnotic effect that mimics the soothing sensations of white noise. The brain responds to this auditory consistency by gradually downregulating its alertness, signaling that the external world is safe, predictable, and ready for rest. Simultaneously, the true scary stories are narrated in a calm, deliberate tone, balancing suspense with serenity. This combination of narrative intrigue and rhythmic sound creates a controlled psychological environment where fear does not become overwhelming, but instead stimulates focus while promoting relaxation. One of the unique aspects of this keynote is its exploitation of the paradoxical fear effect. Listeners are experiencing tension and suspense through the stories, yet they are doing so in the safety of their own space, often lying in bed. The mind recognizes the danger as fictional or distant, but allows the body to remain relaxed. This duality, being alert mentally while physically calm, triggers a profound psychological state conducive to sleep. By keeping the stories just believable enough to engage the imagination without causing panic, the video achieves a delicate balance that accelerates the transition from wakefulness to slumber. The black screen plays a supporting role here as well. By eliminating visual stimuli, the listener's mind can focus entirely on the auditory experience. Eyes are closed or gaze is directed at darkness, which reduces cognitive load and sensory distraction. The absence of light allows the brain to begin producing melatonin, the hormone responsible for sleep regulation, more effectively. In this way, the black screen and rain ambience are not just stylistic choices, they are scientifically aligned with sleep facilitation. The stories themselves, while scary, are intentionally paced to allow for moments of calm between narrative peaks, giving the nervous system opportunities to recover and for the listener to descend, gradually into a sleep-ready state. Another mechanism that contributes to falling asleep quickly is the entrainment of attention. The brain tends to mirror rhythmic stimuli, a phenomenon called neural entrainment. The steady sound of rain combined with measured narration encourages the brain to align with these rhythms, slowing neural oscillations and promoting drowsiness. Meanwhile, suspenseful elements of the stories keep the mind engaged without overstimulation. This creates a paradoxical, relaxed alertness in which the listener is focused enough to follow the narrative, but calm enough for sleep to approach naturally. The careful control of rhythm, tension, and narrative pace is what distinguishes these videos from ordinary bedtime stories or simple white noise recordings. The thematic content of the stories themselves also contributes to the sleep-inducing effect. True scary stories, while initially triggering heightened awareness, ultimately create a sense of resolution in the imagination. Each tale introduces tension and uncertainty, then provides a conclusion or lingering mystery that the mind can process. This structured mental engagement allows the brain to work through fear in a safe environment, providing a subtle psychological release. By the time multiple stories have passed, the listener experiences a cumulative effect of relaxation. The suspense peaks and falls in a controlled pattern, like waves gradually slowing on a shore, each cycle bringing the mind closer to sleep. Additionally, the video leverages the psychological phenomenon known as the fear as stimulation effect. Mild fear or suspense increases heart rate and adrenaline in short bursts, followed by natural physiological calming. This dynamic can create a heightened awareness followed by relaxation, a roller coaster effect that, when paced correctly, induces a state of calmness conducive to sleep. By timing the stories and rain ambience to alternate between suspense and tranquility, the video effectively guides the listener's nervous system through cycles of tension and release, priming the body for rest while keeping the mind entertained. The concept of falling asleep quickly is further reinforced by the consistency of the experience. Unlike typical scary videos with visual cuts, abrupt noises, or unpredictable pacing, this format is deliberate and controlled. The rain never stops, the narrator's voice never spikes unnecessarily, and each story follows a measured tempo. This predictability within the uncertainty of the stories provides a comforting paradox. The listener is mentally stimulated by suspense, yet physiologically soothed by rhythm and calmness. The result is a unique environment where sleep comes naturally, even as the mind is engaged in imagining shadows, figures, and ghostly presences. Finally, the keynote emphasizes personalization and mental engagement. Because the stories are true and the screen is black, each listener creates their own mental images and emotional reactions. This internal visualization acts like a guided meditation, focusing the mind on a controlled set of stimuli while excluding external distractions. It allows the brain to process fear safely, reducing intrusive thoughts and anxiety that might otherwise prevent sleep. The combination of imagination, rhythm, controlled suspense, and environmental cues results in an experience where the listener's mind and body are perfectly aligned for falling asleep quickly. In conclusion, the keynote of Fall Asleep Quickly is a sophisticated fusion of auditory design, narrative pacing, and psychological strategy. It transforms traditional horror storytelling into a tool for relaxation and sleep facilitation. The steady rain, calm narration, true scary stories, and black screen work together to guide the listener into a balanced state of alertness and calm, using suspense to engage the mind and rhythm to soothe the body. By exploiting the interplay of fear and relaxation, this keynote ensures that listeners are not only entertained, but also gently guided into restful slumber. It is the hidden, essential magic behind the video, turning suspense and horror into a therapeutic, immersive, and sleep-inducing experience. The fifth keynote, the no ads experience, might seem like a minor technical detail, but it is, in fact, one of the most crucial aspects of creating a fully immersive and uninterrupted storytelling experience. When a listener is engrossed in a series of true scary stories, accompanied by the hypnotic rhythm of rain and the blank canvas of a black screen, any interruption, such as an advertisement, can instantly break the spell. Even the briefest pause, sudden jingle, or loud commercial voice is enough to shatter immersion, pull the listener out of the liminal space between wakefulness and sleep, and diminish the emotional impact of the stories. By removing ads entirely, the video ensures a continuous, seamless experience, allowing the mind to remain in a controlled, heightened, yet relaxed state. Uninterrupted storytelling is essential for building suspense. True scary stories rely on gradual tension, careful pacing, and subtle cues to guide the listener through an emotional arc. Each story is meticulously structured to start calmly, escalate through suspenseful moments, and resolve with either a chilling revelation or an open-ended mystery. Even a minor distraction, such as an unexpected ad, disrupts this rhythm. The mind must then reorient itself, breaking the delicate balance between anticipation and relaxation. By guaranteeing a no-ads experience, the video preserves the integrity of every narrative beat, ensuring that the suspense reaches its intended psychological peak. The listener can follow the story fully, allowing the fear, intrigue, and curiosity to build naturally without interruption. Ads are not only disruptive but can also induce cognitive dissonance, which is particularly counterproductive in a video designed to facilitate sleep. When a calming, rain-filled soundscape is suddenly replaced by a loud, intrusive ad, the brain reacts with heightened alertness. Heart rate may increase, muscles may tense, and the mind is jolted from the controlled state of relaxed alertness into full wakefulness. This sudden spike in arousal is the opposite of what the video aims to achieve. The absence of ads ensures that the listener's physiological state remains stable, allowing the calming effects of rain, the black screen, and measured narration to work synergistically to promote drowsiness and immersion. The no-ads experience also supports sustained mental engagement. In a typical ad-supported video, attention is split between the narrative and the interruption. The brain must consciously or subconsciously filter out the external stimulus, breaking focus. True scary stories are most effective when the listener is fully absorbed. They require undivided attention to appreciate nuances, detect subtle foreshadowing, and mentally construct the imagined environments. By eliminating interruptions, the video allows the listener to remain fully present within the story, heightening both suspense and enjoyment. The mind is free to explore the shadows, imagine unseen figures, and respond to every sound and word as if the events are happening in real time. Furthermore, the uninterrupted flow of audio supports the psychological techniques that facilitate sleep. Falling asleep quickly relies on a combination of steady rhythm, mental focus, and emotional modulation. The rain provides the rhythmic backbone, the stories engage the imagination, and the absence of ads maintains continuity. Interruptions would act like sharp spikes in stimulation, forcing the nervous system back into a state of alertness and resetting the sleep-inducing process. By maintaining a no-ads environment, the video ensures that the listener's mental and physiological states remain in alignment, allowing a smooth transition into rest while still experiencing suspense and fear in a safe context. The no-ads experience also contributes to the sense of intimacy and personal connection. Listeners often engage with these types of videos at night, in the privacy of their own bedrooms, as part of a personal ritual of relaxation or entertainment. An unexpected advertisement breaks this intimacy, reminding the viewer of external realities and the impersonal nature of online platforms. By eliminating ads, the video preserves the private, immersive atmosphere, making the listener feel as if the narrator is speaking directly to them, guiding them through the night stories. This direct, personal engagement intensifies the emotional resonance of the tales and reinforces the listener's sense of presence within the imagined environment. Another aspect is continuity of auditory environment. The video is carefully designed so that every sound, rain, distant thunder, whispers, floor creaks, is part of a cohesive soundscape. An ad introduces unrelated noise, tone, and rhythm, disrupting the carefully calibrated audio environment. Maintaining a no-ads experience ensures that the auditory world remains consistent, immersive, and believable, reinforcing the suspension of disbelief. Listeners can lose themselves in the stories, imagining each scenario vividly, without jarring interruptions that pull them out of the atmosphere. Finally, the no-ads experience is crucial for listener trust and retention. Viewers who enjoy the uninterrupted, immersive nature of the video are more likely to return for subsequent volumes, subscribe to the channel, and recommend the series to others. The promise of no distractions becomes part of the brand identity, enhancing credibility and reinforcing the perception that the content is thoughtfully produced with the viewer's experience as the priority. This subtle psychological reinforcement not only benefits engagement, but also creates a loyal audience that associates the video series with quality, immersion, and consistent, uninterrupted storytelling. In conclusion, the no-ads experience is far more than a convenience. It is a deliberate, strategic element that underpins the entire effectiveness of the video. By ensuring continuity, protecting the rhythm of suspense, maintaining immersion, facilitating relaxation, and preserving the intimacy of the listening experience, the absence of ads allows every other element, rain, true scary stories, black screen, to function at its full potential. It transforms the video from a simple auditory experience into a seamless, immersive journey where fear, suspense, imagination, and relaxation coexist harmoniously. For the listener, this means uninterrupted engagement, deep emotional connection, and a heightened ability to fall asleep quickly while enjoying the thrill of true scary stories. In every sense, the no-ads approach is the silent, invisible framework that allows the content to achieve its ultimate goal, a perfect balance of fear, fascination, and restful immersion. Immersive storytelling is the heart of the video's experience. While rain, black screen, and uninterrupted audio provide the sensory framework, it is immersive storytelling that transforms these technical elements into a compelling journey that captivates the listener's mind. Immersion in storytelling is the process by which the listener becomes emotionally and mentally engaged in the narrative, fully inhabiting the world of the story. This keynote is essential because it bridges the gap between passive listening and active psychological engagement, turning mere sound into a vivid, unforgettable experience. Immersive storytelling begins with the use of detailed sensory description. Even without visuals, the narrator paints the environment with words that appeal to all senses. The listener hears the crackle of a distant fire, the rhythmic tapping of rain on a tin roof, the rustle of leaves outside a darkened window. They are guided to imagine smells, textures, and temperatures, the damp, cold air of a forest at night, the musty scent of an abandoned house, the metallic tang of blood in a dark alley. These sensory cues create a mental environment so vivid that the listener feels physically present within the narrative. Every detail is carefully chosen to maximize believability and tension, while leaving space for the listener's imagination to fill in the gaps, making the story uniquely personal for each individual. Pacing is another crucial element of immersive storytelling. The narrative must balance tension and release, building suspense gradually while giving the listener time to process each revelation. A slow, deliberate introduction establishes context and setting, allowing the mind to adjust to the story's world. Subtle foreshadowing signals impending danger without giving away key moments, creating a sense of anticipation. Climactic events are then delivered with controlled intensity, often accompanied by pauses that heighten the listener's emotional reaction. This careful modulation of pace ensures that the listener remains engaged without becoming overwhelmed, maintaining the perfect balance between fear and relaxation that is essential for sleep-oriented horror storytelling. Voice modulation and delivery are also critical in immersive storytelling. The narrator's tone, cadence, and emphasis guide the listener's attention and emotional response. A calm, steady voice conveys reliability and encourages the listener to remain focused, while subtle changes in pitch or speed can signal suspense or urgency. Whispered passages draw the listener in, creating intimacy and tension, as though the narrator is sharing a secret meant only for them. This vocal engagement, paired with auditory cues like the sound of rain or distant thunder, creates a multi-layered experience where the listener's brain is fully active, mentally reconstructing the story world. Immersion is further enhanced by narrative structure. Each story is carefully crafted to include relatable characters, believable scenarios, and escalating stakes. Even fantastical or supernatural elements are grounded in real-world details, making the story plausible and psychologically engaging. The listener is invited to empathize with the characters, imagine their fears, and anticipate their decisions. This emotional engagement is what transforms mere storytelling into an immersive journey. When the listener cares about the characters and the events they face, suspense becomes personal. The fear is no longer abstract but directed at imagined consequences for themselves or those they identify with. The interplay between suspense and imagination is central to immersive storytelling. By leaving certain elements ambiguous, the story encourages the listener to fill in details, making the fear interactive and participatory. Shadows in a room, strange noises outside, or fleeting glimpses of movement are all left to the listener's imagination, which is far more potent than any fixed visual representation. The black screen supports this by providing no visual reference, allowing the mind to create its own interpretations. In this way, immersive storytelling is a collaborative experience between narrator and listener. The words provide structure, while the listener's imagination supplies the environment, textures, and emotional intensity. Immersive storytelling also relies on rhythm and repetition to reinforce memory and engagement. Phrases, motifs, and narrative patterns recur in subtle ways, anchoring the listener's attention and creating anticipation. This repetition makes the story feel cohesive and integrated, while also building tension as familiar patterns lead to unexpected outcomes. Listeners begin to anticipate, predict, and immerse themselves in the unfolding narrative, fully inhabiting the mental landscape created by the combination of words, sounds, and ambient rain. Emotional layering is another powerful aspect of immersive storytelling. True scary stories do not rely solely on sudden shocks or jump scares. They use psychological tension, suspense, and fear of the unknown. The listener experiences multiple emotions simultaneously: curiosity, apprehension, empathy, and awe. These overlapping feelings create a rich emotional texture, keeping the mind engaged and the listener invested. The immersive quality ensures that the experience is not fleeting but lasting, with subtle reverberations that influence mood and imagination even after the video has ended. Finally, immersive storytelling allows the listener to experience a controlled confrontation with fear. The mind is naturally drawn to danger cues, and storytelling provides a safe framework for exploring these instincts. Through carefully crafted narratives, the listener can feel suspense, anxiety, and anticipation, while remaining physically safe and aware of the context. This controlled exposure activates the imagination, heightens sensory engagement, and contributes to the hypnotic effect of the video, guiding the listener toward a state of relaxed alertness that ultimately promotes sleep. In conclusion, the keynote of immersive storytelling is essential to the success of the video because it transforms auditory input into a deeply engaging psychological experience. Through detailed sensory description, careful pacing, vocal modulation, relatable characters, emotional layering, and interactive imagination, the listener becomes fully absorbed in the narrative. Coupled with rain ambience, a black screen, and uninterrupted audio, immersive storytelling ensures that each listener experiences suspense, fear, and engagement in a personal and vivid way. It turns simple narration into a dynamic, multi-dimensional experience that captivates the mind, stirs emotion, and leaves a lasting impression, making this keynote the central pillar of the video's hypnotic and unforgettable power. Atmospheric tension lies at the core of why this type of video traps the listener in a strange space between fear and calm. It is not the story alone, nor the rain alone, nor even the voice of the narrator. It is the invisible atmosphere that grows around the listener, a tension so subtle that they don't even realize they've slipped into it. Atmospheric tension is created when every element in the storytelling world blends to form a single emotional environment, one where something feels wrong, where the listener senses a threat but cannot see it, where the silence behind the rain feels alive. This tension is not loud or aggressive. It is slow, creeping, almost gentle in the beginning, like a cold wind sliding beneath a door. As the story progresses, this tension becomes the invisible cage that holds the listener's imagination hostage. To build atmospheric tension, the storyteller begins with the feeling of isolation. The listener may be sitting in a lit room, lying in bed, or playing the audio in the background, but as the black screen stretches into darkness and the rain softens every outside sound, the brain interprets it as nighttime solitude. You are in a bubble, cut off from distractions, and the world beyond your headphones disappears. This isolation is essential because fear thrives where the mind is free to wander. The narrator uses this mental quiet to plant small seeds of uneasiness, describing empty hallways, abandoned houses, lonely roads, or quiet forests, places where anything can hide just outside the edge of human vision. Even though the listener cannot see these places, the brain paints them vividly because the atmosphere demands it. The rain itself plays a greater role in creating tension than most people realize. Rain is both soothing and unsettling. It relaxes the mind, but it also muffles sound, making everything feel closer and more secretive. In nature, predators use rain to mask their movements. Humans, even in modern settings, still have that instinct buried inside. When the rain increases in the background of the story, the listener subconsciously feels a shift. Something is being covered, something is being hidden, something might be approaching. The narrator's voice becomes a lighthouse in the storm, but that only heightens the tension because the calm voice contrasts sharply with the eerie silence behind it. That contrast creates unease. Why is such a frightening story being told so softly? Why does the world outside the voice feel so empty? The tension is not created by loud noises, but by all the things the listener cannot hear or see. Every detail the narrator chooses carries weight in this atmosphere. When describing footsteps on an old wooden floor, the listener doesn't just imagine the sound. They feel the age of the wood, the cold of the room, the stillness around the character. When the story mentions a figure standing at the edge of the woods, the listener not only sees the shape, but feels the distance, the thickness of the trees, the silent breath of the night. This emotional layering makes every detail heavier than it actually is. Ordinary sounds like creaking doors or whispering wind turn into signs of something hidden, something watching, something waiting. The tension builds in layers, each one tightening around the listener like a string pulled slowly without breaking. Atmospheric tension also comes from unpredictability. Good, scary storytelling does not rely on sudden jumps, but on the fear that something could happen at any moment. The narrator may describe a peaceful moment, only to slip in a detail that doesn't belong. A shadow where no shadow should be, a noise that has no source, a door open that should be closed. These inconsistencies disturb the listener's sense of safety. They begin to anticipate danger, even when nothing dangerous is happening yet. That anticipation is the real tension. The listener's heart responds not to what is said, but to what might come next. Their imagination becomes the storyteller's greatest weapon, because the brain always invents something worse than anything that could be narrated. Another powerful technique in atmospheric tension is silence. Not full silence, the rain remains, but a drop in narrative energy, a pause between sentences, a slower breath from the narrator, a faint shift in tone. These micro-pauses tell the brain that something is wrong. Silence in horror storytelling feels like the moment before lightning strikes. The world holds its breath, and the listener unconsciously holds theirs. In those seconds, tension skyrockets because the brain expects movement in the darkness. Yet nothing happens. That nothingness is more frightening than any scream. Atmospheric tension also blurs the line between the story world and the listener's real environment. As the narrator describes a storm outside the character's window, the listener hears the rain through their headphones and feels as though the storm exists around them. When the narrator describes a distant thud in a quiet house, the listener's mind checks their own room. When the narrator mentions flickering lights, the listener mentally notices the lighting in their space. This psychological merging is what makes the atmosphere powerful. It follows the listener beyond the boundaries of the story and touches their real senses. The story is not happening somewhere else. It begins to feel like it could be happening right here, right now, just beyond the darkness of the black screen. Finally, atmospheric tension is a form of emotional hypnosis. It slows the heart, softens the mind, and makes the listener more vulnerable to suggestion. The rain lulls them, the voice guides them, and the tension holds them. In this state, the listener absorbs the story more deeply than they would in daylight or with visuals. Their imagination sharpens, their senses heighten, and the world fades until only the story remains. The tension does not snap. It deepens slowly, pulling them deeper into the soundscape until sleep blends with fear and the mind drifts into dreams shaped by the story they just heard. This tension is what makes the video memorable, addictive, and emotionally rich, creating a haunting experience that resonates long after the audio ends. The listener's mind becoming the second storyteller is one of the most powerful psychological forces at work in these rain-soaked scary stories. It explains why these audio-only horror experiences feel personal, deeper than visual horror, and often more unsettling. Without images, the listener's brain becomes responsible for constructing the world, and that act of creation turns the listener into a silent co-author, building shadows where none were mentioned, adding details the narrator never described, and imagining threats far worse than anything explicitly stated. This phenomenon makes the story more immersive and more terrifying because it happens inside the listener's own mind. The story is not just being told, it is being experienced internally. When the narrator begins describing a lonely cabin, the sound of rain tapping against the roof, and a flickering lantern inside, the listener doesn't simply hear it, they step into it. They picture the room with the kind of specificity that reflects their own fears. The shadows fall where they personally would feel uneasy. The corners of the room darken in ways that unsettle them uniquely, and the setting morphs into something shaped by their memories. For one listener, the cabin might resemble a childhood place they were afraid of. For another, it might look like an abandoned house from a story they once heard. This personal remodeling of the story world is what makes the experience so powerful. The listener is not passively consuming the content, they are subconsciously sculpting it. Even the rain plays a part in this internal storytelling. Because rain is natural, unpredictable, and constantly shifting, it provides an ever-changing backdrop for the imagination. A sudden increase in the rainfall, even if it's just an effect in the audio, can trigger a new wave of anxiety. The listener may imagine a figure moving in the storm or a presence drawing closer. Humans have an ancient instinct to be alert during storms. Survival depended on hearing danger through wind and water. When the narrator speaks softly over the rain, the listener feels something primal, protection mixed with vulnerability, safety mixed with exposure. Their mind fills the gaps with possibilities of unseen threats. The black screen deepens this psychological effect even more. With no visual feedback, the mind panics slightly, searching for reference points. It wants to know, where am I? What is happening around me? Is there danger? Unable to find real-world answers, the mind turns inward and uses the narrator's words to construct an environment. The lack of light allows imagination to flourish wildly, and the darkness becomes a canvas for fears. Some listeners imagine the story happening far away, others imagine it happening just outside their own window. That flexibility makes audio horror more intimate and far more invasive. The story can travel anywhere the mind allows it to. This co-storytelling effect becomes especially intense during descriptions of quiet moments. When the narrator says, "and then the house went silent," the listener's brain does not leave that silence empty. It fills it. It fills it with a distant creak, a subtle breath, a shadow moving, a door slightly open. All imagined details that the narrator never said, yet feel absolutely real. The listener might even hear something in their own room. A faint rustle, a shifting sound, the hum of electricity, but their brain connects it to the story. For that moment, the line between the fictional world and the real world dissolves, and the listener becomes part of the narrative. They are inside it, not outside it. Another powerful way the listener becomes the second storyteller is through anticipation. When a story mentions a character hearing footsteps on a wet porch, the narrator doesn't need to describe the entire scene. The listener's mind instantly paints the porch, the dripping edges, the wooden boards swelling with moisture, the darkness beyond the doorway. It even creates the precise rhythm of those footsteps based on personal fears. Some imagine slow steps, others imagine hurried ones, but each listener tailors the moment in a way that feels uniquely threatening to them. This personalized fear is more effective than any universal horror effect could be. The listener's memories also become tools in the story's construction. If someone once walked alone in a forest during rain, their mind will borrow those sensations, the smell of wet earth, the instability of the ground, the chill of damp clothing, and use them to enhance the details of the story. If they once felt watched in the dark, that memory resurfaces, blending seamlessly with the narrator's descriptions. These borrowed memories add layers of realism that no writer can fully script. The mind is not just filling gaps, it is adding depth and texture, making the horror richer and more personal. Then there is the emotional layering. The narrator's tone may suggest fear, confusion, or curiosity, but the listener decides how intense those emotions become. Some listeners amplify the fear, imagining more danger than described. Others soften it, turning the narrator's voice into a companion through the storm. This emotional co-authorship means every listener experiences a slightly different story, even though the words are the same. The tension becomes personalized, adapted to their own psychological landscape, making the story linger long after it ends. This psychological partnership between narrator and listener is why these rain-based scary stories create such vivid dreams. When someone finally falls asleep while listening, their mind has already been shaping scenes, characters, shadows, and environments. The brain continues those patterns into dreams, often blending the rain sounds with imagined scenarios. Some dream of walking through dark forests, others dream of old houses with flickering lights, others dream of being pursued. It is not the narrator who creates the dreams, it is the listener's own mind, continuing the story after consciousness fades. In the end, Keynote 8 reveals that the most terrifying part of the experience is not the story being told, but the story being created inside the listener. The narrator lights the spark, but the listener fans the flames. The narrator provides the bones, but the listener gives it flesh. The narrator whispers shadows, but the listener gives them shape. This merging of worlds, external narrative and internal imagination, produces tension deeper than any visual horror could achieve. It becomes personal, immersive, and unforgettable. It becomes the kind of fear that feels like it came from within. Is the idea of fear becoming a comfort, a paradox that lies at the heart of why people return to rain-soaked, scary stories again and again, especially with a black screen. It sounds contradictory at first. Comfort and fear should not coexist, but in the world of late-night horror audio, they blend in a way that feels strangely soothing. It is not the intense, heart-pounding fear of jump scares. Instead, it is a slow, controlled, atmospheric fear that sits just outside the listener's senses. A fear they can step into and out of whenever they choose. This controlled fear becomes a companion, a familiar presence that transforms the darkness from threatening to strangely protective. It is the same reason people tell ghost stories around campfires or watch storms through a window. There is safety in being close to danger without truly being inside it. When a listener hits play on a true scary stories told in the rain audio, they are willingly entering a world where shadows have weight and silence has meaning. But they are doing so from the safety of their bed, wrapped in blankets, lights off, the real world locked outside. This creates a psychological boundary. The listener knows the horror is fictional or distant, but their mind still reacts to the tension as if something could happen. The rain amplifies this effect. Rain is naturally calming, almost hypnotic. It slows the heart, softens the mind, and encourages relaxation. And because of that relaxed state, the fear becomes gentler, more manageable, like a ghost sitting quietly in the corner of the room rather than jumping out from behind the door. It is fear made soft, fear made safe. Listeners begin to associate this mixture with sleep. The rain lulls them, the darkness quiets them, and the low, steady voice of the narrator becomes a presence they trust, even when the narrator is describing terrifying events. Over time, they feel comforted by the voice itself. It becomes predictable and steady. That predictability creates a sense of security, even when the content is unnerving. The brain learns, nothing is going to attack me, I'm just listening. And slowly, fear transforms from a threat into a kind of emotional background music. It becomes something familiar, something expected, something that helps the listener drift deeper into the atmosphere. This is why so many people use horror to fall asleep. The fear is not overwhelming, it is gentle, wrapped in the steady rhythm of rain. There is also a biological explanation for this comfort. Controlled fear releases small amounts of adrenaline and dopamine. These chemicals heighten awareness but then fade slowly, leaving a warm, calm, slightly euphoric feeling behind. It's the same effect people get after watching a thriller or riding a roller coaster. But unlike those intense spikes, audio horror is slow and steady. The adrenaline rises in small waves, never high enough to panic, just enough to keep the mind alert. And when it fades, the body relaxes even more deeply than before. The listener doesn't consciously feel this, yet their nervous system responds. This creates a loop: slight tension, soft release, slight tension, soft release. Over time, the body begins to crave this cycle. It becomes a nightly ritual, a way to ease into sleep more comfortably. The rain is a crucial part of this. Rain has always been associated with protection. Inside the house, hearing rain outside reminds the listener that they are sheltered, secure, untouched by whatever exists in the storm. The sound itself becomes a barrier. When the narrator describes someone hearing a noise outside, the listener is safe inside their room. When the narrator speaks of a shadow at the window, the listener knows their own window is quiet, their curtains still. That difference between their world and my world is what creates a sense of comfort. The fear belongs to someone else, not to the listener. They get the thrill without the danger. This creates emotional distance, even while the imagination feels close to the story. The black screen enhances this effect even further. Darkness is naturally a place where fears grow, but in this context, the darkness becomes intentional. The listener chose it. They welcomed it. And because they willingly entered the darkness, it becomes less threatening. It becomes a controlled environment, a chosen void. The darkness helps the mind settle, not panic, because it is paired with predictable elements: rain, a voice, a slow rhythm. These constant repetitions teach the brain that the darkness in this situation is not a danger, but part of the comfort. It becomes a soft blanket for the imagination. Fear, when controlled, can even become a form of emotional company. Late at night, when the world is quiet and loneliness creeps in, the soft tension of a scary story creates the feeling that something else is present. Not human, not exactly safe, but there. An invisible companion made of whispers and rain, filling the silence. Listeners begin to associate this presence with familiarity. It becomes routine. The fear becomes a part of their emotional landscape, something they expect and even look forward to. This is why people who listen to one story often end up listening to hundreds. They are not chasing fear, they are chasing the feeling that comes after fear, the calm that follows it, the emotional warmth that comes when the mind realizes it is safe, even though it wandered close to danger. It creates a powerful memory cycle. Last time I listened, I slept well. Last time I listened, I felt cozy. Last time I listened, I felt something. And so they return, not for terror, but for the strange comfort wrapped inside it. When fear becomes comfort, the listener is no longer afraid of the dark. They embrace it. They no longer feel alone in the silence, the story fills it. They no longer dread the rain, they welcome its protection. And that transformation, fear turning into a soothing companion, is what makes these rainy night horror audios so addictive, so calming, and so uniquely powerful. It is a fear that doesn't disturb sleep. It invites it. The final reckoning did not arrive with violence, nor with flames, nor with the chaos she always imagined would accompany the unraveling of her secret. Instead, it crept toward her quietly, like a cold breath on the back of her neck, soft, deliberate, and impossible to ignore. For years, she had buried her sins so deep beneath lies, silence, and calculated cruelty that even she began to believe it no longer existed. But secrets have their own heartbeat, their own stubborn memory, and this one had awakened, not to haunt her, not to warn her, but to claim what it was owed. In the dim corners of the house, her guilt began to manifest, first in whispers she couldn't locate, then in shadows that moved a second too slow, and then in the eyes of the people around her. The slaves she once commanded with fear no longer bowed with trembling hands. Instead, they watched her with unsettling calmness, as if they were waiting for a spectacle they knew would be worth the wait. Even the walls felt different, closer, heavier, as if they too were tired of holding her secrets. The change in her husband was the worst. His questions grew sharper, his stares longer, his suspicion thicker. She could see it in the way he studied her, how he lingered near doorways, how he pretended to care about her trembling hands. But his concern was hollow. Beneath it was the cold curiosity of a man who sensed he had been made a fool, and fools, once awakened, did not forgive easily. She tried to silence the whispers. She tried bribing the midwife first. The only one who knew what she had done that night long ago. The old woman had seen everything, had held the forbidden secret in her hands, had watched the mistress tremble as she made a choice no woman should ever make. The midwife accepted the money, but the look in her eyes said clearly that gold could not compete with fear. The gold would be spent. The truth would remain. She tried intimidating the slaves next, lifting her chin, raising her voice, demanding obedience. But fear no longer lived in their bones. Whatever power she once held over them had evaporated. They exchanged glances when she shouted. They smirked when she threatened. And worst of all, they whispered when she passed. Softly at first, then boldly. Her name twisted in their mouths, coated in mockery and danger. Desperation drove her into the cellar one night. She needed to erase everything once and for all. The evidence still existed, she was sure of it. Something tangible connected that night to her. She carried a lantern in trembling hands, intent on fire and destruction. But when she reached the shelf where she last saw it, her heart stopped. It was gone. Someone had taken it. Someone who knew what it meant. Someone who understood its power. And suddenly she realized the truth. Whoever had taken it did not want to kill her. They wanted her to suffer first. They wanted her downfall slow, suffocating, humiliating. That made them far more dangerous than any enemy she had imagined. For 2 nights, she barely slept. Every sound made her jump. Every gust of wind felt like a hand on her shoulder. The servants eyed her with quiet excitement, as if her collapse would be the most entertaining event they had seen in years. Her husband's smile grew thinner, sharper, almost eager. Then, on the 3rd night, the reckoning arrived. It began with the chapel bell. It rang at midnight, low, heavy, echoing across the plantation like the toll of a funeral. No one had touched that rope in years. The bell tower was abandoned, coated in dust. The wheel was rusted in place. It should have been impossible. But it rang again and again and again. Each clang vibrated through her bones. She ran outside without shoes, her nightgown whipping around her legs, her hair tangled in the cold wind. She stumbled up the hill toward the chapel, driven by terror so deep it numbed her steps. The door was open, not wide, just enough to suggest she was expected. Inside, the air was colder than winter. A single candle flickered on the altar. And there, placed deliberately in its weak circle of light, was the missing evidence she had searched for, the object tying her to the forbidden night she had tried so hard to erase. Beside it lay a note. 4 words. Her heart collapsed when she saw the handwriting. The letters were familiar, the shape of them identical to someone she had once held as an infant, the child she believed gone forever, the child whose existence she had denied, the child who had survived what she had done. The note said only, "I know the truth." Her breath shattered, her body folded to the floor. Every lie she had ever spoken weighed on her chest like stones. The candle flame stretched her shadow across the chapel wall, making her look monstrous, twisted, inhuman, exactly what she feared she was. Then she heard footsteps, slow, measured, confident, not the footsteps of a stranger. She turned with dread curling through her. Standing in the chapel doorway was her child, grown now, hardened, eyes burning with questions and betrayal, eyes that mirrored her own, eyes that carried the fury of someone who had waited years for this moment. The child stepped forward, voice low, steady, unmistakably judgment. "Mother," they whispered, "you cannot hide anymore." The word mother hit her like a blade. She had never deserved it. She had forfeited it the night she made her terrible choice. And now, the child she tried to erase had returned. Not for reunion, not for forgiveness, but for truth. The final reckoning had arrived, not from God, not from the world, not from her enemies. It had come from the blood she abandoned, from the life she betrayed, from the secret she tried to bury. And there was no escape, no lie left to tell, no darkness left to hide inside. Tonight, her past had found her. Tonight, justice had a face. Tonight, everything she feared became real. In the end, when the last whispers faded and the night settled into its cold silence, one truth remained pulsing through the walls of that cursed land. Nothing stays buried forever. No lie, no sin, no betrayal. Everything we try to smother beneath fear and silence eventually claws its way back to the surface, choosing the moment that hurts the most. And when it comes, it does not come softly. It comes like a reckoning. The plantation had witnessed fire, violence, death, and cruelty, but none of it compared to the moment the truth finally stood in the doorway, breathing, living, refusing to be ignored. It wasn't a ghost. It wasn't a rumor. It wasn't a shadow from the past. It was flesh. It was blood. It was the living consequence of everything she thought she had destroyed. That is what made the final moment so terrifying, because the truth didn't return as a memory. It returned as a person. This story lingers not because of what happened long ago, but because of what it reveals about us now. It forces a question few people dare to confront. What have we hidden so deeply that we pray no one ever finds it? What choices from our past still breathe just beneath the soil, waiting for the right night to rise? The sins we commit do not dissolve. They wait. They sharpen themselves in the dark. And when they return, they do so with the precision of fate. Every step she took to bury her crime only fed it. Every lie she whispered into the dark only echoed louder. And when the truth finally came for her, it didn't come with revenge or rage. It came with the calm certainty of something inevitable. Something promised. Something earned. There is a reason this story refuses to fade. Because anyone who listens feels that tug in their own chest. The reminder that secrets have memories sharper than forgiveness. We can flee from people. We can hide from accusations. We can burn the evidence, silence the witnesses, and pray the darkness swallows everything. But the truth has its own heartbeat, and it never stops looking for the one who created it. So when the rain falls a little heavier, when the night feels too quiet, when the wind presses against the window as if carrying a message, you understand why this story stays with you. It is not just about the plantation, or the woman, or the child she tried to erase. It is about the universal truth no one escapes. The past is patient, and it always returns to collect its debt. Somewhere out there, beyond the reach of firelight or prayer, the consequences of old sins still wander. They knock quietly. They wait politely. And then, when the moment is right, they step forward out of the dark with one simple message. I never forgot. And that is why this story will never truly end.